Thank you. Supply chain has come a long way in Nigeria. It started off traditionally as procurement, buying, purchasing, logistics. Several organizations give it several names, but supply chain management itself encompasses the acquisition of goods and services. And typically in most organizations, in leading organizations really, about 75 to 85% of the expenditure of their annual budget is spent on the acquisition of goods and services. And it's important to, where you spend your money, to put the best brains in your organization to that entity. Otherwise, accountability and prudent spending will be a challenge. So for Nigeria as a country, a lot of organizations, particularly in the oil and gas industry, have practiced prudent supply chain management, whilst a lot more actually are evolving. In countries like the United States or United Kingdom, it is a matured profession, if you like. In Nigeria, and unfortunately to some extent up till not too long ago, people find themselves in that profession. People do not plan to be in that profession. They just find themselves there. And yours truly was actually one of those who found themselves there. When I joined Shell in 1985, January, Shell decided to employ young graduates, strong bloods, who could be taught commerciality. And they decided that where we should be is to be posted into the Procurement and Logistics Organization, where you learn tricks and tactics and strategies of how to sweat your very $1 and make the most out of the money by applying robust supply chain strategies and tactics to carry out their business. This is an organization that consciously develops youngsters to go into that trade. Many organizations look for, unfortunately, those who are not doing not so good in businesses. They find themselves in this area. But over time, empirical evidence have proven that if you don't put your best brains in supply chain management, you will throw money down the drain. What is really supply chain? Supply chain management is the integration of the acquisition of goods and services, the movement of those goods and services, and also the storage of those goods and services, and the preservation of those goods and services. It's all encompassing. Why are those important? These are segments of you buy something, you need to, before you buy that thing, you need to really articulate what you want. You need to define your acquisition. Then you go out to tender. After tendering, you select a vendor based on the perhaps the concept of total cost of ownership. Once you've done that, you award a contract, you pay your contractor, the job is done, and obviously, if it's goods, it gets stored. If it is products, goods and products or goods, it gets stored. If it is services, it gets used. So construction of mega platform, for example. Now, all this integration, the movement by road, by sea, by air, are all integrated, because in the total value of supply chain, the chain itself are broken into a number of chevrons. And that chain, along the line, for every portion of the chain, money is involved. What that means is that if it's not coordinated, if it's not integrated, you will drop money as you go along. Empirical evidence suggests that over 40% of the cost of acquiring goods or service is actually in the management of the contract. I'll give you an example. If I want to build a stadium, Abuja Stadium, for example, and let's say for sake of argument, it costs you 100 million naira, for sake of argument. The cost of the material you use for that construction may well be great. You may well manage that well and get the best contractor to do that job for you. But it is in the management of the contract, ensuring there's no slippage in delivery, in time that each schedule of the job is supposed to be delivered. Because contracting, supply chain, has to do a lot with legal content. which then means that if the contract is not properly managed, you could end up in litigation. And you may end up paying damages that almost as equal or more than the value of the contract. So the total supply chain is integration of all these various elements, which when we put together, we are optimizing the commerciality of the acquisition of goods and services, which invariably means that you actually put value on the table of the person that requires the service. So the profession has evolved in Nigeria, and we must give a lot of credit to the federal government of Nigeria, to democracy particularly, because democracy brought about the Act of Parliament, which is the Public Procurement Act, which was midwifed by the Bureau for Public Procurement during the Obasanjo administration. This singular act has transformed the arts and science of supply chain profession in Nigeria, because it then gave credence to the fact that people have to have a profession. People who know what they are doing have to be behind the arts and science of buying and storing and movement of goods and services. So in that case, Nigeria have done well. The Bureau for Public Procurement, for example, have done exceedingly wonderful, because they have introduced this subject matter into government ministries and parastatals. They have given training to people. They have reoriented people into commerciality and ensured that people now have a profession out of supply chain. It wasn't like that before. Procurement wasn't anything recognized. But today you have directors in every institution in Nigeria from the federal point of view and the state government point of view. You have you have people who have created careers out of this. And it's really, really good. Some states are doing wonderfully well. Some states have, many states in Nigeria have actually developed their own procurement policies, and by extension, created an act of parliament that had, now have laws that procurement of goods and services can now be managed effectively through this act of parliament.
You know, it's good that you've been able to communicate in practical terms the meaning of this and how it can really help government save a lot of money and also boycott cases of litigation and all of that. Do you think that the many advantages that this provides in a system is well optimized in the Nigerian system?
I do not think so, simply because of knowledge, professionalism. I think there are loads of opportunities out there, and this is one of the great work that BPP is doing, that you don't leave change on the table. Those opportunities exist because we are using people who are not knowledgeable in providing that quality service. In the oil and gas industry, where I'm familiar with, an average contract, major contract, we are talking in terms of hundreds of millions of dollars. If you want to build an oil and gas platform or a rig, for instance, you're talking close to $200 million. Now, this is a lot of money. What that then means is that if you don't put expertise who understand the concepts, who understand the strategies, money, even if it's ordinary 10%, that has a lot of meaning when you translate that to the exchange rate for the local currency. Now, the people who are in procurement, who are in supply chain, are trained to know what to look out for. They are trained to ensure that terms and conditions are properly communicated between themselves and the contractor, to ensure that schedules are met and the slippages are not found that will lead to money being wasted. So these are the things that we've learned. For example, how do we compare globally? Nigeria, unfortunately, in my view, still have a lot to learn from global top chain supply chain organizations globally, those who practice. If you look at the London Olympics a few years back, a supply chain colleague of mine, who were both members of the board of CIPS, was actually made the director of London Olympics to build the stadium, and they delivered on time, on schedule, and on cost. This is the work and the benefit you get from putting the right people in the right position in some cases. And how did I get in there? Well, it was globally advertised. looking for supply chain practitioners who are members of the professional body to contest for elective positions in the institute. And people all over, it was segmented by geographical region, and Africa had a block. So the block for Africa, thousands of entries. I take that back, not thousands. When I actually mean lots of entries. Lots of people put in for that, and at the end of the day, I was selected. My entry was selected to be the best, and I became the first African to represent the body at the council. And I did that for a couple of years. After my tenure, I was appointed. I was advanced in the category, and I was made the first black person to be the vice president, and ultimately became the first black person to be the president of the institute, which brought tremendous recognition for Nigeria as a country. Not even talking only about Africa. Nigeria was really, really recognized, and it's on the back of that that the South African government gave me personal recognition. And at one of the conferences in South Africa, when they were talking about the World Cup, the Minister of Finance in South Africa had presented a paper at the fora, and the Vice Chancellor of the University of Fourth Air in South Africa, East London, South Africa, they got together and they suggested to me to be appointed a research fellow of the university to support budding African young stars. That discussion went on. Eventually, I was appointed as an adjunct professor of supply chain in the University of Fourth Air in South Africa. So all these were in recognition of the contributions that I was fortunate to make onto the arts and science of supply chain management. And I am not the only one. Quite a number of Nigerians have actually excelled. Babs Omotowa did wonderfully well. He became the second Nigerian to attain this position. He was the managing director of Nigeria LNG. And we have a number of Nigerians who are working for United Nations today in their supply chain, their procurement, their contracting units, who were members of the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply, UK, which is a global body that manages the arts and science of the profession. How can we help Nigeria to develop grassroots supply chain professionals? The institute has been around for over 83 years, so it is not today. In the US, similar institutes were formed over 100 years ago. But in Nigeria and in many parts of Africa, I don't think we have done anything putting this in our academic curriculum earlier than 25 years ago. Now, that has culminated into the challenge the country is having, because there is death of supply chain professionals in Nigeria. Majority of the people practicing supply chain today, practicing procurement, practicing contracting, got into the role by accident. Many of them are general business practitioners. They studied probably economics, they studied accounting, some engineering, some quantity surveying, and they found themselves into this profession. But to actually develop it from the grassroots, there are opportunities existing now elsewhere in the world. In NNPC here, I have younger colleagues, about 5, 6 of them, who have gone out of Nigeria. Some went to Robert Gordon's University to study master's degree in supply chain. Coming back home, there is a foremost organization, institution we should talk about, that's Kaduna Polytechnics. They have been awarding OND and HND degrees in supply chain management, in procurement, in purchasing, they call it, I believe at least in the last 15 years, if not more. And they have graduated people who are now directors in several institutes in Nigeria, in a lot of federal government institutions. That's quite impressive. There are a couple of organizations in the eastern part of Nigeria that are doing this. We are targeting universities. We are letting people know the importance of this profession. Without procurement, you will leave money on the table. Every institution in this country, higher institution, at least supposed to have a department where the arts and science of supply chain, if it is not entire supply chain, integrated supply chain, it could be purchasing. It could be logistics management. Because come to think of it, we manage logistics in the country. And this is why you see a lot of derelict vehicles, a lot of derelict systems in Nigeria, because they are not being managed by professionals. I watched a program on the NTA last night talking about Abuja and talking about mass transit system. Who are the people managing this? They are not 100% professionals. Some professionals that are there. But this is the habit we need to inculcate in our people. You will not allow a surveyor to manage your hospitals, would you?
No way.
Because, I mean, the consequence will be apparent. So this is why, if we have our institutions imbibing this curriculum imbibing this subject in their curriculum, we will be able to develop more people and have better society to manage the acquisition of goods and services. And this is what I like young people to think about. Do not create boundaries for yourself. Open your world, open your horizon. Become great leaders as you can become, so that your employer will identify new traits in you and look for opportunities where you can excel. Grant you those opportunities, test you out, and hopefully you will deliver in those opportunities. That is my story. That is the story that I have been given several opportunities out of my academic sphere of influence, my academic prowess. I have been given opportunities to delve into other areas of business, and by the grace of God, we've been able to deliver on that. And today, I'm so proud of my role in the industry, looking after federal government investment in the LNG market. That is what I would like to pass on to our young people, that do not put yourself within a corridor of knowledge alone. Open your mind up, create opportunities for yourself, make sure that whatever you are called upon to serve in any field of human endeavor, you will be able to tap on previous knowledge from previous agenda and develop yourself to deliver value to the country and to your employer.